people today. They could spend half their lives over 50. That's a lot of living. So it helps to have a wise friend and fierce defender in your corner. A friend like AARP. So your health lives longer.
This is just slow-mo karate?
Just slow-mo karate.
Your money lives longer.
I just bought that.
I just sold that.
And your happiness lives longer. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Join today.
Welcome to AARP Illinois' virtual event. It's so wonderful to have you with us. AARP is on a mission to connect with individuals across various communities, especially those aged 50 and above. We're here to listen, understand, and address the unique needs of you and your community as we age. Our goal is to enrich your experience by expanding our local activities, providing opportunities for you to discover and engage with all that life has to offer right here in your own community and virtually. As we journey through today's event, we invite you to consider joining our dedicated team of AARP volunteers. It's a chance to make a meaningful impact and help us better serve those 50 plus across the nation. Connect with us and be a part of this vibrant movement toward positive change. Welcome, and let's make this event both fun and transformative.
Good morning. Welcome to AARP's Illinois special virtual event. I'm your girl, Teresa Jones, Associate State Director, and I'm here with your other girl, Courtney Hedderman, Senior Associate Director of Advocacy and Outreach. Together, we are your Fraud-Fighting Fraudlettes. So we're thrilled to be bringing you the latest on frauds and scams, and ultimately, arming you with the information that you're going to need for prevention and reporting if you're ever a victim. We're excited to bring you this month's topic, internet scams and how to protect yourself. But before we get started with our discussion, I'd like to remind our Facebook and YouTube viewers that you can ask questions and share your comments in the social media feed. We'll do our best to address as many of your questions as possible during our conversation. But to kick things off, let's start with some questions, Courtney.
All righty, let's go. Okay, so I think the thing that maybe just to start off is just kind of the basic question, like what are internet scams, right? So, internet scams are essentially fraudulent schemes. They're conducted online, so just like we're all online right now today, they're online, and it's really to deceive us individuals, to provide information, personal information, right? Like our social security number and our address, our our mother's maiden name, those very, very personal things that are identifying markers for us. But they're also looking for money. These are criminals that are essentially trying to get us to provide personal information, wanting us to send money, and of course, other valuable assets. So these ultimately are serious scams that are just trying to get us to give our information and ultimately provide money to them. Now, I think that older adults tend to be targeted, particularly because they're sometimes less familiar with technology. Now, I know that's not all of us on today because we're on our technology today, but I think, criminals are thinking, well, they're not as good with technology. They'll fall for a scam. Older adults sometimes can be more trusting. And ultimately that seniors and older adults have money to burn, that they actually have money, significant savings or assets. So if you did that, where is a criminal going to go if they're looking for money? They're going to go to the people who have that. And so if they're thinking that older adults have the money, that's who they're targeting. So I think that's also why we have to be really diligent and vigilant in our protecting ourselves when we're online.
Mm-hmm. And, I think also sometimes that could be a false narrative of people thinking that all older adults have money,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm an older adult. I have none. But seriously, you know, a lot of older adults, they're on fixed incomes, even more fixed than most of us already are. So we, you know, yeah, but people do have a tendency of looking at older adults in that way, thinking, you know, and also I think they don't think they're sharp sometimes, and you know, they're going to fall for this. But
well, I agree with you, especially on the technology side, Teresa.
Mhm,
like
mhm.
that, you know, older adults don't know what's happening with technology, and they're going to fall for these things because they're not as savvy, or they're afraid to make a mistake. So they're going to easily maybe make a mistake more. And so they're just, yeah, that's that. And that's obviously a myth, right? There's so many older adults who are online. And again, for our folks watching and listening, you're online, you're already doing stuff, right? And I'm sure you're shopping and, you know, looking at other videos and hopefully participating in a lot of AARP fraudlet things.
Yeah.
But, you know, ultimately you're online, you're doing stuff. So
there's a lot of common types of internet scams. I'm going to tell you about a few of them. I don't have them all, don't have enough time to tell you all of them, but the common ones I'll go into. Phishing emails, fake tech support calls, online shopping scams, romance scams, and lottery or sweepstakes scams. Well, you know those fake tech support calls that say there's something wrong with your computer, and they want you to check it. They want you to call this particular number, and those you have to be very, very careful. Those online shopping scams. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm an online shopper, but I have to be careful because, and yes, if you notice, Courtney said me too. So, sometimes it's hard to tell what are the real deals. So pretty much when you're shopping online, and I'm not trying to bring out a certain company or anything, but go with the more reputable companies, the ones that you hear about a lot. Romance scams. Well, everybody likes a good romance, I think. So romance scam, you know, someone's pretending that they're really interested in you. And then unfortunately, you know, then your heart just starts beating and you think, oh my gosh, he's wonderful or she's wonderful, only to find out that these aren't even really real people that are interested in you, you know. And then especially when they start asking for money, you know, well, you know, it's like, well, baby, if you love me, you'd help me. Well, you know, my thing is, baby, if you love me, you wouldn't ask. But anyway, but people get involved in ways that you don't even think that you would, and never, never, never be embarrassed. So, and then the lottery or the sweepstakes scam, you've won the lottery. Or you've won the sweepstakes. You know, someone's going to be knocking on your door with $70,000 million. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's nice, and it'd be even nicer if it was true, but we just have to be careful. Now, I mentioned phishing earlier, about phishing scams, those phishing emails. So what are they? Well, phishing emails, they often contain an urgent message. They ask for personal information. They have poor grammar, spelling as well. And they come from suspicious email addresses. So they're always like, you got to do this right now because it's going to be gone in 30 seconds. You know, there's a bunch of people waiting on the other line, but we picked you. Yeah, right. Okay. And then they're asking for your personal information. And it's a little bit more, sometimes when people are asking you for things that you normally wouldn't give out, if something inside your head goes, then you know what? That's how you ought to think about it. Should I give out? One thing we already know, and you should have known this from a lot of our calls, don't give out your social security number. You know, never do that. Don't give out your driver's license number. But anyway, be careful on those phishing things. And remember, it's that urgent message. You got to do it now or you're going to lose out on life. So, Courtney, you have some other stuff you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah. So actually, I just received one of those suspicious emails not too long ago, in fact. And I think it's okay to say a business name, but because I feel like this is one, especially for people who shop Amazon, I think it's okay to say Amazon and call them out. And not that they're doing something wrong. It's that a lot of people are shopping on Amazon, right? I mean, and I'm a Prime member myself. And so, you know, I received a message from Amazon what I thought was Amazon, saying that my package was delayed. And I'd already received that information. So that was interesting too, that I'd already gotten notification that my package was delayed, what I was receiving. But then what it did was it said that I had to pay additional money because of this delay. And that ultimately I needed to take action immediately, or I was not going to get my package at all. And so I had to look at that really carefully, okay? Because I already, again, had received that information. Why were they sending that to me again? And again, why were they asking me for more money, right? So I had not fully opened the email either. So I want to be very clear about that, because it had said that in the subject line. So I didn't click on a link or anything like that. I had just seen that in the body of the email. It was asking me to click a link, but I had seen that in the body of the email, and I had seen that in the subject line. And so when I started to like really investigate the email to see if it was real or not, it not only had this very suspicious email, but it also at the very bottom had like other email addresses that were for like random people. And so it obviously was, I knew at that point, suspicious, because the email did not come from Amazon. It came from another source. And so when I went into my Amazon account and actually looked at what my order was, it did say a delay, and it said the date approximately I was going to receive, but I knew that my order was fine. My account was not flagged in any other way. So I went directly to my Amazon account and checked things out. And so that's what I say to anybody. When you are seeing and receiving a suspicious email or message, don't click on any links or download attachments. That's certainly great tips. Mm-hmm. You certainly want to verify the sender's identity to see if in fact it truly is the real sender that you're expecting something for. And of course, maybe there's other communication methods that are happening as well. Maybe there's a call, so it's even outside of the internet, but you're wanting to verify that sender. So if in fact you're, not directly going into an online site, like Amazon, right? In my case, I could call Amazon and say, hey, was this fraudulent, or is this real, or is this not? So you can certainly take other methods to find out if in fact, is this real or not. I will tell you, I was also at another event last week in person, and someone was showing fraudulent emails, and it was fascinating because it was actually a FedEx, like what somebody would expect from FedEx, because it had the colors, and I think the brand itself is so interesting. So they had, do you remember what the colors are for FedEx? It's like purple, like this purplish and orange color, right? And when you see some brands like that are very color coordinated, or certain logos, you automatically think that's safe, because you identify those companies with those things. UPS is another great example, because brown, right? And they even, really tout that, right? UPS does. And so you can look at logos and think that that's that company. But when you get closer and you see, oh, wow, that person is not from FedEx or from UPS or whatever the company is, that's completely, a criminal essentially reaching out to me, wanting me to click on something or download something, and goodness, more importantly, send additional money. So how you then can protect yourself and your personal information online, this is where, when we have accounts like that, use strong, unique passwords for each account. And I know I'm super guilty of this, so I'm gonna do better. If you do better, I'll do better. Okay. So we need to have unique passwords, not like, 1, 2, 3, 4, ABC. We can't do those. Don't do your last name and like some numbers, right? Like those are very easy passwords. So somewhat unique passwords, but for each account, not like 10, you have 10 accounts perhaps. And I don't know, I feel like we even have more than 10 accounts, all of us, right? There's so many passwords that are needed for things. But if you have it for, unique one for each account, it just is safer, and potentially enable a 2-factor authentication. So, maybe you have a face, or you have to enter this specific code. there's lots of ways to kind of do these extra steps to make sure your personal information online is protected. So obviously you avoid sharing that personal information then on social media and other ways, and with other people. Don't do that. So keep that stuff safe by having those passwords, and ultimately not sharing.
Well, there's some comments that we're getting, but even before that, one of the things you had said about, clicking on the link in your email sometimes is, and I'm just asking this as a question for me. I notice that sometimes on our emails in the beginning, you'll see the first part of it, of what the content is. I wonder if there's a way that you could, without actually opening the email, if there's a way that you can really see even more, because sometimes even clicking on the link is dangerous.
100%.
Yeah.
For sure.
But
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I thought you might knew the answer to that.
Oh, I do know the answer.
Well, tell me, because I don't know.
Okay. So what's very nice, and I think somebody actually just put this in the chat as well. So this is great comment. You take your mouse or that cursor and you hover over the sender's name of that email address that's sent to you. If you're hovering over that name, it'll display the email address. So it might say, I'll use, mine. So Courtney Hedderman at AARP.org, right? But if it was not me, it could say Courtney Hedderman at AARP.org / all these numbers, all these letters. Like it's clearly not me. It is not a correct email address. And it'll not be the person that maybe you're expecting to receive something from. So for even example, the FedEx example or Amazon, again, it might say Amazon.com, but then there's a whole bunch of host of other, letters and numbers and things. It also could even give a totally different name. So when you're actually legit, hovering over that email address, it might be a completely different name too. So that's a great way to see if in fact this is a real, email person, et cetera, that you're, looking for, expecting a message from.
Great. And I appreciate that comment. We have another one that said that they get tons of these things. They get tons of these fake emails, and they said that they're both fake relationships and they're spammed for fake winnings, and etc. Now, we have another question on here. And I'm just going to make sure that we get all of the people that are asking us questions. That this is from YouTube. What is the safest way to pay on Amazon?
Yeah, I think the safest way, in my opinion, is to, within your Amazon account, have a credit card that is saved. If you don't feel comfortable saving it, then you enter. I have a credit card saved within my account, and I have, luckily, knock on wood and fingers crossed, I've never had that compromised. However, if in fact you want to take an extra step, you don't have to save a credit card within your account. You can just, as you're purchasing something and you're going to pay for it, then you enter in that account each time, right? But I will say I've never experienced an issue in when I've paid for my Amazon purchase that something has happened.
Right.
And perhaps others have. I've not been compromised. I think the thing that I've received, and again, more recently, was that they were trying to get more money from me, and it wasn't Amazon, obviously.
Right.
That's where the criminal was coming in. But paying for it directly through my account is the safest way for sure. And if you don't feel comfortable, like, again, sorry, Teresa, if you don't feel comfortable you can call Amazon. And I mean, you'll probably take a little bit longer to get through, but call Amazon and give your card over the phone.
Yep. I was going to say, and another thing that we might want to add, debit cards. I never use a debit card for anything that I'm buying online. You have no recourse. That goes straight to your checking account, and when it's gone, it's gone. Whereas when you're dealing with a credit card, you have credit card fraud departments, and I would say they're pretty good. I've had an issue with a company one time, and I called my credit card company about it, and guess what? I got my money back. They took care of it. But had I used a debit card, I just would have been out of luck. So if nothing else you take from here, don't use your debit card. Use a credit card.
Yep.
Thank you for that, Courtney.
Yep.
Now, we also want to know sometimes about how do we secure our computer and our devices? How do we do that? Well, I've got an answer for you. You install an antivirus software. Hopefully everybody that's on this call today has one on there already. You keep your operating system and your applications updated, and use a firewall. Now, I know we all get a little lax after a while, and we don't, which after this call, I'm going to go back and check mine. But I always make sure that my antivirus software is up to date. So those things are important, and it's important enough for me to say it again. Keep your operating system and your applications updated, and use a firewall. So now I think I've been scammed. What do I do? Well, immediately you stop all communications with the scammer. You report the incident to your bank and local authorities, and then you change any compromised passwords. Now, do me a favor. While you're on the phone talking to the scammer, don't tell them I'm hanging up and calling the police. Just pretend like, it's an okay thing. Okay, well, thank you. Hang up, then immediately call your people that are going to be able to help you. Make sure you call your bank and your local authorities as soon as possible. And those passwords that Courtney was talking about earlier, change them. All right. Now, Courtney?
Yep. So
how do we avoid that online shopping scams?
Yeah. So I think that the thing to do to avoid scams in general, especially online, is, again, and you made reference to this, Teresa, shopping at reputable websites and companies that again are not are just not illegitimate companies. They are legit, right? So you have big companies that obviously exist, and we know all those. We've even talked about some of them today. But there are some that are smaller mom and pop shops, and that's okay to do that. But you want to make sure that it's an actual website. So read reviews, because that's one way to find out if something's legit. If you go into the email address or website, if it is safe, it'll say HTTPS. So if it has no S, because that is something that is required in federal law, that if in fact your online shopping option, a company has to have HTTPS. If it does not have the S, then it is not legit to be selling things. So make sure that you are shopping at a reputable site. Read reviews to make sure that this company is legit. You can even go to the Better Business Bureau, because they certainly are keeping track of online shopping and those reputable businesses that are selling. And of course, I will say there is something to be said for our own intuition. If in fact it seems too good to be true, most of the time it is. And so if something is just, you know what I mean, Teresa, right? Like hair stand up on the back of your neck and your arm. It's like, gosh, why am I questioning if this is real or not? We have those feelings. We have that type of intuition. Go with that. If in fact you're thinking, this doesn't seem right, I don't feel comfortable, listen to that and then make that appropriate, decision at that point. Well, I'm not going to buy that right now. Because again, most of the time, if you want to buy something, you can buy it the next day and the next day and the next day, right? Like it's going to be available. You always go back. So question things, ask questions, get information, make sure it's legit purposes, purchases that you're wanting to make, and then make those. So we want to make sure that you do those things. These are hopefully really good tips for you, or good reminders for sure. Now, we talked also about romance scams. And so just want to make reference to that really quickly too. So, there are, again, criminals, scammers, they're really essentially trying to make fake profiles to build relationships and eventually, gain information and ultimately get money. And so, this is where you avoid sharing that personal information and certainly too quickly. And I'll share too, we have an AARP volunteer who's lovely. And I received a message through Facebook Messenger asking a question about a policy. And I answered the question. I thought it was the person I was talking to.
Mhm.
And ultimately, through a couple of, we had a very short exchange. It was probably all of about a minute, but multiple messages. All of a sudden, I knew based on some of the answers that
Yeah.
this was not this was not our volunteer. This is not the person I know.
Yes.
And I immediately shut down that conversation, deleted, like I reported it to Facebook and deleted the whole message.
Mhm.
And then went to our volunteer and said, hey, you know what? I'm so sorry. I believe you've been compromised. I know you weren't talking to me today, right? And so of course they weren't. And then they took the steps they needed to do to protect themselves online on their Facebook page. But it's scary. We got to make sure that we are talking to the right people, and we're not, especially in our romance. I love how you said that, Teresa. We're all looking for romance. And when someone's paying attention to us and interacting with us, we want to have those great conversations and connections. We got to be wary, especially if anybody asks us for money.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get all sorts of other types of things to us, like tech support calls and other types of things. And so maybe you can talk about that too, Teresa.
Yeah, those fake tech support calls. Why is someone just going to call you just out of the blue and say, I want you to check your computer, or you need to check your bank account or whatever, and they're there to help you. I mean, we all believe that, that good things do happen, but someone's just not calling me all of a sudden to tell me that my computer's going to break down in 30 seconds. So again, they come from unsolicited sources. They claim there's a problem with your computer and they ask you for remote access or payment. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, just take it from your girls, Courtney and Teresa. It's not a good idea. Legitimate companies will not make unsolicited calls. Hewlett-Packard and all these other places, they do not know that your computer is going to break down. So you call them. All right. Now we got investment scams and how do you, just all of these things are just going crazy out here, but they promise a high return with a little risk. You avoid them. You avoid them by researching the investment opportunity. Trust me, as Courtney said earlier, that investment is not going away in the next 30 seconds, okay? So you call somebody reputable. You check on the credentials of the person. If they don't want to give you their name and they say, hey, we got to do this right now, you know what you have to do right now? You got to introduce them to Cousin Click, and that's hanging up, okay? So, yeah, Cousin Click, I've done it several times. So, and be skeptical of unsolicited offers. Really, that keyword is unsolicited. And then identity theft online, same thing. Shred sensitive documents. Monitor your bank and credit card statements regularly. You can buy those shredders, inexpensive, or if not, if you know someone who has one, ask if you can borrow their shredder or go over to their house and shred. And use secure websites for transactions, and consider placing a fraud alert on your credit report. That's important. Now we're moving right along. So Courtney, where can they find some more information and support if they're concerned about these scams?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there is, if there's one thing to get from Teresa and I today and any tip, it's that you sometimes need to ask for more information and support, and don't be afraid to do that. Please don't be afraid to do that. And if you think you have been compromised in any way, shape, or form, please report it. Whether, again, it's like if you were on Facebook right now, like you want to report to Facebook. If you have been scammed through a company, there's multiple ways to connect. Your local law enforcement is certainly a first line of defense. But you can visit websites like the Federal Trade Commission, certainly AARP. We're here to keep you safe and protected. That is one of our goals. We want to make sure you have resources and support. So there are a lot of local community centers too, and all sorts of folks who are also talking about frauds and scams and workshops, internet safety, classes, all sorts of things. So please look into your own local community. But Federal Trade Commission, AARP, again, your first line of defense is your local law enforcement. If you have been compromised, please report. No question is silly. No, nothing that you can do is better for yourself than reporting. Then please report if you feel like you've been a victim of a scam. Don't be embarrassed, just report. Hopefully, if you had given money, that money will be hopefully returned, but we want to make sure that you are safe as much as possible. So please report and check out that information. I know we have a couple of questions too that have come through. Just want to really quickly go through those. Are there any sites and services that store all of your passwords safely? And I have in the past saved some, passwords for particular sites. I don't do that on my smartphone. I'll do that on my laptop. I feel my laptop is a little bit more safe. I'm not out in the world with my laptop like my phone is, right? And so I don't save my passwords within my smartphone. But some of those things, like if you have your bank, other financial institutions, that kind of stuff, I feel those are very safe, actually. A lot of the passwords, I like my Amazon account, I'm on that a lot. I have not saved those passwords. So things that I'm buying, like any site that I'm buying, I don't save any of those. In fact, a lot of times I don't even create a lot of accounts for some things, like a Home Depot, for example. If I'm buying something off of Home Depot, I'm not like, I'll check out as a guest before I set up like an account, unless I'm totally required to. But so I don't save when I'm buying. I have saved my passwords again for my banking and other financial institutions. But again, that's on my laptop, not my smartphone. So hopefully that will help. And then another question we have is, I actually had a credit card company refuse to refund $50, even though they sent me the details of the charge that proved it wasn't me. Can I tell what company it was? Well, you don't need to tell us what company it was. I can only imagine. That is awful that they won't refund the money. That doesn't sound right to me if in fact they're indicating that the charge wasn't from you. Most people don't know this, but you can actually appeal decisions when things happen like this and grievances. And so I would go back to your credit card company and say, hey, you know what, this was protected. I have not received, and not, you're saying I shouldn't receive my $50 back, but I should. It's protected. Mm-hmm. And I need to have that refunded and actually file that appeal or claim. I will say this much: if in fact it went further and they did not, personally, I'm not sure I would do business with them again then. If they're not going to refund something that's automatically, their job is also to keep you safe as well. And when you have filed a claim saying this was not me, and you're showing proof of that, and they know that and don't give you your money back, then that's not a company I want to work with. Just my 2 cents. So I would question that for sure. But I think that's the main questions we have for the day. Appreciate this. Mm-hmm. Such good questions coming through. If you have, again, need more information, want to connect with us, please do so through aarp.org/Illinois. But let me just close this out, Teresa, if you don't mind, because I can't believe we're near the end of the time.
Yeah, you went so quick.
Seriously, this was the fastest 30 minutes we've ever had, I swear. I can't believe it. I can't believe it's come to an end. But thank you so much for joining us for this enlightening conversation. Teresa, it is always a pleasure. So happy that we're together talking about these important things. So everybody, please remember, knowledge is your best defense against fraud. So it's so good that you were here today. I hope you learned something. Staying informed and vigilant is key to protecting yourself, certainly against internet scams, but also lots of other fraudulent things that happen to us. Now, we will be here again next month for another engaging conversation regarding fraud. And boy, is it going to be a doozy. We're talking all about voter fraud. So a little bit more controversial for us, Teresa, I think, in some of our fraud work, but this will be interesting.
Yes,
Once again, thank all of you for joining us today. We look forward to continuing our mission of supporting older adults, caregivers, and the entire aging community in Illinois and across the country. So for more information regarding fraud, you can call us, AARP. We have a fraud line. It is 877-908-3360. So again, that's 877-908-3360. Or you can visit our website at aarp.org/fraud-watch network. Again, that's aarp.org/fraud-watch network. Hope you have a wonderful day. This concludes our virtual event today. And Teresa, what's our motto?
Stay safe. Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.